Though I know I should be wary, still I venture someplace scary. Ghostly hauntings I turn loose. Gayties toys, Gayties toys, Gayties toys? That didn't even rhyme. This is not only my 50th video in this series, it's also spooky season. In a few days, it's going to be Halloween 2024. And also, this is one of my favorite, just properties out there from the 80s and 90s. So, big day, no pressure. Looking forward to talking about MIA 80s ladies, Beetlejuice. If you don't know what Beetlejuice is, it was a 1988 comedy horror starring Michael Keaton, Catherine O'Hara, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Winona Ryder, that other guy we don't talk about. Real star-studded cast, and quite a few of them, much like Michael Keaton, was just on the brink of massive success just a short year later with Batman. The story takes place around a little town called Winter River in Connecticut, where Barbara and Adam buy a new home, are about to start a new family, and they tragically die suddenly, only to become ghosts tethered to their house, which very shortly is bought by the Dietz family, and they turn into this artistic hellscape. The Dietz's daughter, Lydia, can see Adam and Barbara, and she sort of helps them try to adjust to being ghosts, but they also are kind of being bothered, pestered, bugged by Beetlejuice. Adam and Barbara essentially hire Beetlejuice to drive out the Dietzes, and hilarity and a child bride moment ensue. It is, in fact, a great movie. One of my favorites. I've watched it to death. The same year, Beetlejuice cartoon came out, and this is the beginning of where we're going to do some Ghostbusters comparisons, where the Barbara and Adam factor were sort of taken out of the cartoon. Much like Ghostbusters, the bones were there, but characters were removed or adapted for Saturday morning. In the cartoon case, everything's pretty much there in place. It's just that, the Maitlands are gone. Beetlejuice and Lydia are not, a couple, as gross as that would be. Instead, they're best friends, and they really sort of flesh out the world of the town, Lydia's school, and more importantly, the netherworld, where there's a whole cast of characters in the afterlife who are, just wildly entertaining. Unlike Ghostbusters, which did toys based off of the cartoon rather than the movie, Beetlejuice did, toys based off of the movie rather than the cartoon. I don't know whether this was the correct decision, but it's the one they made. They also did what Kenner was doing at that time, again, with Ghostbusters and Police Academy, where they had a lot of gimmicky, gross-out figures. This was, peak Garbage Pail Kids, peak Madballs, peak gross stuff. So a lot of these figures could do a thing, but only that thing, and were generally useless otherwise. The toy line was made by Kenner. It was, well, certainly charming. I mean, there's, it's got a great lineup, but also very weird choices. They had Otho, the interior designer. They had 3 or 4 different versions of Beetlejuice. They had Adam, but not Barbara. They excluded Lydia, who was really kind of the breakout, star of both the cartoon and the movie. So, very odd. And it's not even that, ew, girls, women aren't allowed here. In Wave 2, there was what I think is a woman ghost, the teacher, but it's just a strange choice to leave out, really 2 of the main characters and 2 very popular characters in the Beetlejuice verse. Likewise, for the movie, I mean, sure, they didn't want to do Lydia. She doesn't really, lead into the whole action figure kind of gimmick of the toy line, but Barbara would. Adam, the figure they made of him, had a really stupid backward red hat, but he did look like his character, and he did come with a big, stretchy goo bird mask, so Barbara, likewise, could have easily have done the same thing, maybe with a backwards hat. So Kenner didn't make Lydia, Barbara. I wouldn't expect they would make Delia, but there was also Juno, who was a major player in the movie. She was the Maitland's, caseworker from the Netherworld. Not exactly kid-friendly as a chain smoker with a big stoma, scar in her throat, but nevertheless, I mean, they could have just taken the Granny Gross figure from, the Ghostbusters line and repainted it with a tweed suit and shipped her off. I mean, I would have been fine with that. The cartoon, which was essentially Dad Jokes the series, would have been a better place for toys to live. The closest thing we ever got to that was Burger King toys from a kid's meal, in that you had, statues of Beetlejuice that you could flip around and another character would be behind him. In this case, we actually got Lydia and Delia, but action figures this does not make. The final verdict here is conflicting. We have had a lot of toys on Beetlejuice, believe it or not. As early as 2001, NECA was doing Beetlejuice toys with Beetlejuice and Adam and Barbara, again, in the bird faces. Um, at that time, the collector market, the adult collector, movement, as it were, wasn't really big. It was a very strange time where, very small properties were trying to grab attention and no one really wanted to touch the big dogs from the 80s and 90s. So we did have, technically, an lineage version of Barbara. She's out there, it exists. What about Lydia? As best I can find, outside of maybe Mini-Mates, is a little 3-inch action figure from the Loyal Subjects. They did a lot of these smaller figures, articulated though they may be, very tiny blind box figures. In this case, Beetlejuice and Lydia came in a 2-pack. Likewise, Adam and Barbara with the bird faces came in another 2-pack. So, I mean, we did get, I guess, the main cast for Beetlejuice in this style. There was more promise later on as Loyal Subjects decided to do a animated Beetlejuice figure under their BST AXN figures, which I think it's supposed to stand for Best Action, but it's more like Busted. I had it. It's gummy plastic, it's bad paint, it's a very atrocious figure. I just ended up throwing it in the trash. They did show at least concept art for Lydia, both in her red poncho and sort of, civilian clothes. Neither of these things came out. However, Ginger, the tap dancing spider, who was supposed to be included with Lydia, was indeed slotted into Beetlejuice's package. So, yay for ladies representing there, I guess. And then, of course, in September of 2024, there was the movie Beetlejuice, finally, a sequel to the original 1980 movie. Again, Lydia, her daughter, Delia, all these characters did come back for this movie. There's a bit of a flurry of Beetlejuice figures, both, vintage, classic Beetlejuice and this newer movie, from a few different companies, including SH Figure Arts, NECA, you name it. But again, no real Lydia, no real representation of that, and nothing, in the future, time of recording. So what we've got here is a final verdict where, yes, the characters have been made in different forms, in different sizes, under different construction. They're out there, but it feels insincere and incomplete. I mean, if you are a mega fan of the Beetlejuice franchise, like myself, you want, the main cast, and that includes Lydia, Delia, Barbara, that includes Ginger, that includes the cartoon folks, that includes, the best of both worlds. And over the years, maybe you could pick a few things here and there and sort of cobble together the characters, but you don't have a good collection. So it feels bungled. We got them, but it's not what we want. And that's, again, where the Ghostbusters kind of comparison comes in, because, we've gotten lines over the year, but it's never been, what we wanted. All of that is to say that I like to end these on an optimistic note. So, 2 things. One is when you name your sequel Beetlejuice, and make a bit of money at the box office, much more than originally, you're probably going to get a Beetlejuice. No one here. So I assume, should that succeed, and jumping off the success of the sequel, maybe we'll finally get some company investing properly and, kind of getting a laser focus on getting, if not the movie characters, maybe at least the cartoon characters. Likewise, I have mentioned Funky McClunky before. He is a, kind of a renowned 3D modeler of vintage Kenner Star Wars figures, who's, you go find his shop on Etsy. I'll link it below. On his YouTube channel, also linked below, he suddenly got into Beetlejuice toys from Kenner as well from back in the day, and he sort of made a video about doing all the characters. That would include, Barbara, Lydia, even Delia. So we called them out by name. He's going to be working on them in the near future. Time of recording, I don't have any pictures, but I mean, I just spoke to him last night. It's a go. And that is the MIA 80s ladies on Lydia, Barbara, Juno, Delia, Ginger, everyone from Beetlejuice. We're doing a whole package here. Thank you for watching. I thank you for liking, commenting, sharing. I do read them all. I would like to wish you all a happy Halloween, and I will see you next time on MIA 80s Ladies.